A man sits alone in a small white room. A researcher asks him one question. Think about your own death for 30 seconds. He closes his eyes. 30 seconds pass in silence. Then something strange happens. His opinions harden. His loyalty to his own group spikes. His patience for outsiders quietly disappears. 30 seconds of thinking about dying changed who he was. Now stretch that experiment out. Not 30 seconds. 2 million years. Because that is how long humans have carried this knowledge. The certainty that one day we simply stop. Here is the question this video will answer. What if that unbearable knowledge didn't just haunt us? What if it built us? Cities, religion, art, laws, empires. What if the thing you spend your whole life avoiding is the reason civilization exists at all? Stay with that question. We are going to earn the answer. A deer grazes quietly in a field. A wolf appears in the tall grass. The deer runs. Danger passes. The deer forgets it ever happened. You don't get that mercy. Somewhere around age 5, something shifts in a human mind. A child watches a pet stop moving. A grandparent doesn't wake up. And a terrible new idea enters the mind. People can simply stop existing. That idea never fully leaves again. Here is the first mystery. Evolution is obsessed with survival. So why would it build a mind that fears its own end? Knowing you'll die doesn't help you outrun a predator. If anything, it should paralyze you. So why do we have it? 2 million years ago, a brain learned something new. It learns to picture a future that hasn't happened yet. Early humans needed to plan the hunt. Where will the herd move next season? This required a strange mental trick, placing yourself inside a moment that doesn't exist yet. But that trick has no off switch. The same mind that imagines tomorrow's hunt also imagines its own funeral. You cannot build a mind that sees the future without also building a mind that sees its own ending. The fear of death may not be a flaw. It may be the price of imagination itself. That's the first answer. But it opens a much bigger question. Because knowing you'll die is one thing. What our ancestors did next changes everything. 100,000 years ago, in a cave near Israel, archaeologists dig into ancient soil. They find something that shouldn't exist yet. A human skeleton, deliberately arranged. Red pigment placed carefully across the bones. Shells and tools buried beside the body, as if the dead still needed things. Picture what this actually means. A group barely surviving day to day, spending precious time on someone already gone. This provides zero survival advantage. So why did they do it? A purely rational species should accept death and move on. Instead, our ancestors did the opposite. They pushed back. They built ritual. And ritual, once it starts, never stays small. A little-known thinker publishes a dangerous idea. His name is Ernest Becker. His question terrifies people who read it closely. What if civilization itself is a side effect of fear? Humans are the only animal aware enough to know it's coming. That awareness creates a constant hum of dread. Most people stop noticing it, like a refrigerator humming in another room. To survive that dread, Becker says, every culture builds something. He calls it an immortality project, a religion promising life after death, a bloodline that continues without you, a name people will remember forever, art that outlives the artist. Here is where it gets uncomfortable. Becker isn't just talking about pyramids. He's talking about your job, your reputation, the flinch you feel when someone criticizes your work. That flinch was never really about the criticism. It's a crack in the shield protecting you from dread. Remember the man from the beginning. Remember his loyalty spiking after 30 seconds of thinking about death. Scientists call this worldview defense. They've tested it hundreds of times, across cultures, across religions, across political lines. The pattern barely changes. When death becomes visible, humans grip their identity tighter. Their nation, their beliefs, their tribe. Which raises an uncomfortable question. How many wars were really about land? And how many were a species trying to prove it won't disappear? Let's test this claim against the brain itself. Neuroscientists scan people while they imagine their own death. A network called the default mode network activates. This part of your brain builds your sense of self, and it seems to struggle with one specific task, imagining its own shutdown. Some researchers call it a blind spot. The machine that builds your identity resists modeling its own end. This explains something almost everyone has felt. You know, intellectually, that you will die. But some deep part of you doesn't quite believe it, as if your mind shields you from a fact it can't feel. Religion rushes into that exact gap. So does legacy. So does ritual. Which brings us back to the question, sharper now. If a species spends 2 million years softening one fact, what does that make civilization? Is it our greatest triumph? Or our most elaborate coping mechanism? Philosophy split into two camps, centuries apart. A philosopher named Epicurus makes his case first. Where death is, you are not, he argues. Where you are, death is not. The two never actually meet, so there is nothing to fear. It's elegant. It's also completely useless to most people who hear it. Understanding an argument does not erase a feeling. Centuries later, a philosopher named Heidegger disagrees completely. Stop running from the fear, he says. Lean directly into it. Most people live in quiet denial, he argues, going through routines as if death happens to someone else. Heidegger believed real meaning only begins once you fully face your own mortality. Not as an obsession, but as the exact thing that gives your time weight. Two brilliant minds, two opposite conclusions. Neither one made the fear disappear. And that might be the actual answer hiding in plain sight, because maybe the goal was never to defeat the fear. Every religion, every myth of an afterlife, every monument ever built, every child raised to carry a family name forward, none of it was really about escaping death. It was about negotiating with it. Go back to that cave near Israel. The red pigment, the shells, the small buried tools. Those weren't acts of denial. They were the first known act of negotiation. We cannot stop this, the gesture seems to say, so we will make it mean something.